Hello again, and welcome to the third episode of Your Fave Film Critic, starring yours truly, Dom Griffin, your favorite film critic. If I'm not, I don't know why you're doing this or listening to this. I think you're on the bandwagon. You're on the right team. You're on the winning team, and it's okay to be proud of that. Today, I have a lot to talk to you all about, and I think that's good. You guys like talking about stuff, right? A lot to discuss. But the first thing I want to mention is, obviously, if you follow the channel, there is not a new regular upload this week. I'm aiming to have like regular uploads in between every pod episode. But the pod is sort of like the fallback for if I don't actually get a real video up like this week. But I have good reason. I think I have good reason. And I'll explain myself a little bit, not too much. And then we'll get into, the accepted format of the show so far. The show's always broken into 3 chapters, so to speak. We're going to talk about what's going on in the entertainment industry. We're going to talk about, news items, hot takes about news items. And then we're going to talk about what I watched last week, what I watched in between pods. And then a little section where we talk about me answering questions from listeners, viewers, the audience. You guys picking my brain, me getting to the bottom of things, but I do want to talk a little bit about something first, that this is the 3rd episode of the pod, and like these 2 topics are just going to be probably addressed in some way, shape, or form every episode for the foreseeable future now. So like we can just consider them like to be sort of the ongoing arc of this season of the show, I guess. But one of those things begets the other in this conversation today anyway. The 2 things are Barbenheimer, got to talk a little bit more about Barbie and Oppenheimer, and the sag-aftra and WGA strikes. Those things are connected in the discourse right now, and I'll get to why. But the first thing I want to say is I know a lot of you are super sick of hearing the phrase Barbenheimer. You're tired of the bot-generated t-shirts, Barbie wearing Oppenheimer's hat or a pink mushroom cloud or what have you. I understand if you're sick of that, but I just want to clarify something for the listeners out there. If you are sick of Barbenheimer, you are legally, this is legally binding, you are legally not allowed to be more sick of it than anyone who works at a movie theater. Because as tired as you may be of the memes, of the merch, of the copy pastas on Twitter, unless you've been in the trenches, unless you have fought in the kernel wars that all exhibition industry employees have suffered through the last 7-8 days, you're not allowed to say you're sick of it. You're not. I'm sorry. You can close the tab, you can mute the tweet, you can ignore the Instagram shirt ad, but some of us have not been able to escape our fate. Barbie and Oppenheimer broke records, box office records, a slew of them. But the headline is that Barbie opened up to, I think, $162 million 3-day gross this past weekend. And then Oppenheimer did like 80 something. I should have the real numbers in my notes, but I don't. I'm sorry. And that is because the weekend grosses were crazy, but then every day since has also been crazy. So here's the thing. Barbenheimer weekend, all told, for the exhibition industry in North America, I think earned $307 million, making it the 4th highest grossing box office weekend in history. Number 3 is Force Awakens weekend, which I think made like $313 million. And that was also like around Christmas or something. I think it was like in December, if I'm not mistaken. And then number 2 is Avengers Infinity War weekend with like $314 million. So like, pretty self-explanatory. And the number 1, obviously, is Avengers Endgame weekend, which made like $400 million. I worked at a theater for all of them except Star Wars. That was like my brief hiatus from working in a movie theater. But I worked Endgame weekend, I worked Infinity War weekend, and I worked this weekend. And this weekend was easily the hardest, working at a movie theater weekend I have had since, like, I think me and my peeps pinpointed it back to like 2013. We worked at an art house theater in DC that opened Grand Budapest Hotel on like 3 or 4 screens. And my boss, the GM at the time, chose that week to go on vacation. And we just got murdered. That, like, if you worked at an art house theater 10 years ago, a Wes Anderson movie was the equivalent of like Endgame. And Budapest did big numbers. But this weekend, man, we had Barbie on like every conceivable screen, and then whatever screens weren't Barbie were Oppenheimer, and then a couple of other movies, and every show was like selling out. It was just this crazy. It was the best business my theater has done since like pre-COVID. Again, easily, handily. But it's not just the fact that we were busy. It was the kind of business, and to that I say that. You had lots of people dressing up in pink. And I don't just mean like young girls and stuff. I mean like everyone, like old people, men, women, everyone. Like everyone was doing the pink thing. A lot of people were doing Barbenheimer double features, even though I told them not to. Oppenheimer was actually bringing out a really strong dad crowd. I saw a lot of guys bringing their dads to see Oppenheimer, which makes sense. It's kind of prime watch a movie with my dad energy. I think the last really good watch a movie with my dad movie we had was like The Card Counter. Just a lot of guys, a lot of like hipsters coming out with their fathers. And this is the one thing they can kind of agree upon is men in rooms with their little tiny notebooks. But crazy business levels. None of us were prepared. None of us were prepared for this level of a business. So we're all very worn out. But then the crazy thing is we made it through the weekend and we thought we were safe because weekday businesses, even during the summer, not crazy, you know. People don't go to the movies on the weekdays anymore. But no. Every day was just more. My theater, on average, on a weekday, like a Monday, we're lucky to break 100 people the whole day. Monday we had like 1,300. Tuesdays, it's like a discount day, so Tuesdays can sometimes get up to like 300, 400, 500 people. We had 1,600. It's been hell. By Tuesday we had like nothing to sell people. We had no like bottled water. We were down to like 3 soda flavors. It's traumatic. It's been a traumatic few days. So the one chunk of space that I had this week where I could have produced a video, like a full-length video, I was just like, my brain was mush, and I was also just still dealing with work stuff from home. So that is the reason why this movie's done so well. But the thing I want to talk about really is that there seemed to be a level of enthusiasm at the theater this week that was kind of infectious. Like, I'll say it was hard. Like, we were all sweaty and burnt and tired. I have like kernel burns on my arm. But the people that were coming for Barbie especially were like really upbeat and friendly, and like everyone was so excited. And it like when you work in service, it's always hard because people can be so mean. People can be so terrible. Like, if you've ever had a job in customer service, you know what I'm talking about. Like, people they take all their aggression out on you because what are you going to do about it, kind of thing. And it can be hard. But this weekend, seeing a bunch of like little girls excited to see Barbie, seeing a bunch of young women excited to see with their friends, calling each other Barbie in the lobbies and stuff, and people dressing up, and it was nice. It was like, there was like an infectious vibe. We were all kind of in on it. We were all having a good time, making the people happy, and it felt kind of good. And we haven't had this kind of excitement at the movies in a really long time. Spider-Man No Way Home didn't do it. You know what I mean? I hate to say it, but Avatar The Way of Water didn't do it. It was the combination of this Barbie movie that people love. It's a fantastic film. And then Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer is like a really good movie. And, you know, it's like a 3-hour biopic. It's like kind of some depressing subject matter, but people were like clamoring to get in. The number of times I'd have to like tell someone like, all I have left is the front row. You don't want to sit there for 3 hours. They'd be like, fuck it, I'm doing it. And I'm like, all right, man, I tried to save you. You know, but they didn't care. They just wanted to see, they wanted to be a part of this event. They wanted to be a part of this like zeitgeist and stuff. And the movie theaters have not had that in a while, you know, and like, I'll talk about it a little bit more later, but you know, fuck it, I'll talk about it now. the Marvel machine that we've kind of been relying on for so long is just giving diminishing returns now, right? Like Guardians of the Galaxy is probably one of the best Marvel movies in years. And even that just feels like a blip culturally. Like it made some money, but then like, whatever, no one talked about it anymore. I didn't finish Secret Invasion after I reviewed the first couple of episodes. I looked at the stuff online about it. It looks like dog shit. It looks terrible. It's got like with the worst like RT score of any Marvel product ever. I was just reading about, last week I talked about how Dune 2 might move off of its release date in November, but if it doesn't, it's like guaranteed to have the first 5 or 6 weeks of IMAX screens, which would mean if it doesn't move, the only Marvel movie left for this year will not have that premium large format to rely on for like inflated grosses. And I don't think a Marvel movie has opened without IMAX in some time. And that just feels like something shifting, I know a lot of us movie bros or whatever have all been talking about it's so over for Marvel and stuff, and like it's probably not fully over, but you can feel it, right? You can feel that something is changing. And the unfortunate part of this is like the strike is going on, right? Studios are talking about moving all their shit out of fear. I don't know how you run a studio and you look at the numbers from this weekend and you see the sheer fervor for the multiplex coming back after all this time. I have sat through some weeks where like I wait to see what we're going to open and then they tell me what the movie is and I'm like, oh, we're fucked. Because nobody gives a shit about this. These movies, it's just like, oh, look, it's got Maggie Smith in it. This movie is aimed at older women and they don't even like coming back to the movies anymore the way they used to. Good luck until the next Marvel movie, It's been inspiring to see people be so stoked. Even people, my favorite thing about working in movie theaters since COVID is every big release. So like Top Gun weekend, Avatar weekend had a little bit of this. And then now Barbie weekend is like, you have people coming up and telling you, hey, this is my first movie since like 2019 or early 2020. And you get to welcome them back to this magical place. Now, I don't consider my actual theater to be a magical place. I spend so much time in it, I can't imagine it in aspirational terms. But, the movie theater as a concept, this magical place. And it feels so special. It's like, this is good. People are finally wanting to leave the house again. They're kind of sick of what streaming has to offer. They want the big screen experience. They want the communal experience, seeing it with people. And now we're in danger of not having more movies at the end of the year. Like if I was obviously things would be very different if I was a studio exec, but like if I was, like, why would you just give these people their fucking money? Get them back to work, give them their money, be fair, and look at how much money can be made. Just from a practical standpoint, I'm not even talking about just like what is right or what is moral, because they don't care about that. Even if you don't give a shit about, providing labor with what it is entitled to or whatever, just from the perspective of, don't you want to fucking make money? Aren't you tired of this streaming shit not working for you? Don't you want a movie to open to like $150 million because everyone has to see it opening weekend? And they keep going on the weekdays. Monday was like Warner Brothers' most profitable Monday gross since The Dark Knight. Every day this week, Barbie has just done crazy numbers. I don't run a very large movie theater. It's not like one of those like 12 screen multiplexes or whatever. But I think we had something like 8,000 people in the last 7 days come to see Barbie. I don't know how many of those are repeat offenders, but let's just say we sold 8,000 tickets to Barbie. That's beautiful, I'd feel that way even if it wasn't Barbie. Like, I liked Barbie a lot, as you guys know, but I would feel that way if it was like, anything but Sound of Freedom, I guess, if we're being honest. But, I hope the studios get their shit together. I really hope the studios are like, you know what? Let's just give them the money. We'll make more. We'll make so much more. There's so much money to be made. But, I don't know. We'll see. But that news sort of leads into... So we talk a lot I think in the film community of people who love movies about how Hollywood always learns the wrong lessons. That like, Pirates of the Caribbean was like a big success, and rather than try to produce a bunch of like clever, entertaining, star-driven, swashbuckling adventure movies, Disney was like, I guess people want us to adapt our other rides. Like people never learn the right lessons. I guess it sucks. And with Barbie's success, it's like, look, this is a cultural phenomenon that was developed from the fact that a very distinct authorial voice was given the keys to this big piece of IP and sought out to create something special, was given the space to create something special, did create something special that resonated, right? Well, I guess like the Mattelverse, the Mattel Cinematic Universe is the next step. They're like, we own all this other stuff. We have lots of other toys. We could make cultural phenomena out of it. And it's like, can you though? Can you really? I think one of the first things that got announced for this was like a Polly Pocket movie written and directed by Lena Dunham, which I kept seeing jokes about on Twitter. So I thought they were jokes. And then I saw that, no, this is like legit. I saw it in the Hollywood Reporter. And one of the benefits of it being so busy at work this week is like I had way less time to like check my phone. Normally just stuff happens. I'm in the elevator. I check my phone. I go outside for a second. I check my phone. But because I've been so busy, I wasn't as dialed in to what was going on in the media. So like the whole thing about the UFO stuff and like Congress or whatever, all those alien memes, I had no idea what was going on. Like aliens could have actually touched down on Earth and visited us, and I just was not aware. I was just in the weeds with Barbie. But I did see the Polly Pocket stuff, and I was like, is this a bit? Is there a new bit going on? I love bits. This is not a bit. This is real. This is really happening. And I saw some people on the internet shitting on Lena Dunham. Totally cool with that. I liked Tiny Furniture, her first film, just fine when it came out. When they gave her an HBO show, I watched Girls' first season, maybe the second season too, I don't remember, and I liked the show. I think she's a pretty strong writer. I think she's got some good ideas. I think that she's not a very interesting director, and I think she's kind of a terrible actress. And I also think that every time I hear her say a thought in the real world, it makes my skin like melt. Like, no, that doesn't sound negative enough. I feel like my skin turns to like rocks or something, and then they just like fall off like pebbles from my flesh. I don't like Lena Dunham is what I'm trying to get at. I don't know why I'm saying it so strangely, but I think she sucks for the most part. But I'll give her a props that she's not like without talent. Not a person I'd want to watch a Polly Pocket movie from. Not a person I'd want to see do any kind of IP movie, because I just can't fathom it being good. And when people were shitting on Lena Dunham, which I think is fine, I saw people fighting back, trying to come for Greta, which we don't like around here, and saying that Greta should... This is the thing about the internet, right? A lot of people, especially younger people, like just don't remember things from even like 5 or 6 years ago, which is crazy to me. I feel like when I was young, I knew stuff about 20 years ago, but I feel like now that time is different, things are strange. People, like 5 years ago was like a fucking another eon or something. It's crazy. A lot of these people don't understand that like Greta Gerwig existed before Lady Bird. So like I saw someone say something like, well, Greta should really be thankful that Girls was popular enough to make space for Lady Bird to even be a movie. So, if anything, she should like kiss the ring. And there's some kind of weird obtuse like Lena Dunham, Nicki Minaj comparison to be made here, but I'm a little too afraid to try to expand upon it in the pod. I don't want the barbs to find me. Please, I don't want the barbs to find me. But just that sense of someone who was like, at one point was like, I guess an iconoclast, and now wants to be like a gatekeeper. Well, in this case, Lena Dunham doesn't want to be a gatekeeper. People are sort of foisting that upon her in this theoretical conversation. But like, Lena Dunham could not have made the movie Tiny Furniture, nor I think would it have been a possibility to make a movie like Tiny Furniture if it was not for like the mumblecore movement, of which Greta Gerwig was like the literal fucking face. So the idea that like Greta owes Lena something and not the other way around, I think just really rubbed me the wrong way. But then I realized, like, I don't know how many of these kids have seen any of the fucking Mumblecore movies. How many of these kids have, like, a DVD copy of The Puffy Chair? Realistically speaking here. How many of these kids know who Andrew Bialski is? You know, let's just be honest, right? So, there's no reason to, I guess, get mad at them that they never watch Hannah Take the Stairs or something. You know, like, whatever. Like, that was a very niche time, you know. More to talk about the Mumblecore movement later in the episode, as it turns out. But, yeah, Lena Dunham's making a Polly Pocket movie. I don't know what to say about that. I mean, I'm going to wake up and Edgar Wright's going to be doing a Mighty Max movie, and people are going to clamor for it and think it's going to be great. And, like, no. I sort of think the Barbie thing was lightning in a bottle. I don't know if they're going to recapture it with another pseudo-auteur meets toy thing. I don't know that's going to happen. Greta will just go down as being one of the only two great filmmakers to make a film about a toy. Let's be her and Michael Bay. Not going to expand on those thoughts. This isn't really news, I guess, but they released like the first, like, I don't know, promotional image or whatever for the Iron Claw. This new, I think A24 is releasing it. It's the new movie from Sean Durkin. I have not seen his second film, nor do I remember the title of it. But Sean Durkin's first movie was Mother Marcy May Marlene, or the title is those four words in a different order. I just know that it ends in Marlene. I might not even be sure about that. Anyway, it's an independent film from like some years ago. I think it's the first major thing I saw Elizabeth Olsen in, and she was pretty good in it. It's like a really cool little movie. And I heard for a while now that he'd written this movie about the Von Erich family. If you're a wrestling fan, you know about Kerry Von Erich, Kevin Von Erich, David, the Von Erich brothers, this family of wrestlers who worked out of Texas, the sons of Fritz Von Erich, this legendary Texas promoter. It's a very tragic story if you're not familiar with it. There's a Dark Side of the Ring episode of it on Vice, but now there's a movie about it, and it comes out around Christmas, and the cast for this thing is wild. They got Jeremy Allen White from The Bears playing Kerry Von Erich. Sag-Aftra is playing David Von Erich. I believe. No. He's playing Kevin Von Erich, sorry. And then Harris Dickinson, the guy from the Kingsman prequel, and he was in Beach Rats. If you've never seen Beach Rats, you should check it out. It's a really, really dope little movie about like this like hot young guy who's like kind of exploring his sexuality and stuff. That guy's in it, and I remember when I saw that, I was like, this kid from Beach Rats is going to be a movie star, and it hasn't happened yet. And I thought that the Kingsman prequel was his biggest chance, and that didn't work. But he is in this movie. He's playing David Von Erich, I believe. And then they got Holt McCallany from Mindhunter to play Fritz Von Erich, and I'm so stoked for this movie. There's no trailer or anything yet, obviously. It's just a picture of the brothers like arm wrestling each other or hugging or some shit. It looked cool. And I'm so stoked for two reasons. One, fantastic cast, an interesting filmmaker, a subject I'm very fascinated by. I love professional wrestling, so I love movies about professional wrestling, and they're very few and far between. But also, a lot of people are going to want to watch this movie for thirst reasons, because it's just got a bunch of hot white boys in it. And they're not going to, I don't know if they're going to like Google the Von Erichs before they watch the movie. And they're going to get suckered into the same tragedy that fans of the Von Erichs got suckered into. Look at these pretty good looking, clean cut white boys. Surely there's no darkness that lurks beneath the ring here. So I'm excited for that. I think the Iron Claw is probably going to be dope. We got a good year of movies left for us. I mean, there's still some good stuff coming, so I'm really looking forward to that. I don't think there's anything else in the news to really talk about. So we're going to move on to what I watched this week. I actually watched some stuff this week. One of the things I like about doing the pod is now I feel not obligated so much, but I feel more motivated to watch things when I have free time, just because I know I get to talk to you guys about it later. Does that make sense? Is that weird? I don't know. It feels more fun than just, like watching a movie and being excited to write something pithy on Letterboxd. Like, this feels a little bit more real. I don't know. Anyway, first thing I'm going to talk about that I watched Command Z, this experimental comedic web series from director Steven Soderbergh, one of my faves, maybe my fave. It's like 8 episodes. It totals something like an hour and a half. Basically, every episode's like 8 minutes, and then one episode is like 20. And it's really interesting. I want to recommend it to people, but at the same time, I don't want to like hype it, because I liked it and I found it fascinating, but I was not like hooked into it. Like, I continued watching Full Circle, the HBO Max show I mentioned last week that Soderbergh is doing. They released 2 more episodes of that, and those were very good. Like, the show like actually got better. I would recommend Full Circle wholeheartedly. Whereas Command Z, I was like, this is funny. This is cool. This is the most Michael Cera I've seen in a week in a while. But it's basically like a sci-fi comedy. The trailer makes it look very Everything Everywhere All at Once-ish, which is a little strange to me. But the general idea is that it's the future, and this AI version of an Elon Musk type played by Michael Cera takes employees from his company in the future and sends their brainwaves back to 2023 to influence people to make small changes to make the world a better place in the future. So it's just space for them, sort of set up to make a bunch of gags about how bad the world's going to get. And those jokes are funny, if depressingly accurate, or feeling accurate. They seem prescient, I guess. Or there's just a couple of bits that they get to kind of lampoon stuff from around now. Liev Schreiber plays like a really fucking evil, like, banker, hedge fund type guy. He hates everyone in the world. He's just this like scum, but he loves his dog, and that's like a fascinating story. And then one of the episodes is about a rich guy who's trying to get into like one of those like doomsday communes reserved for rich people, and they get at him through his daughter to like trick him to think he's not going to get into one. It's like fun. Roy Woods Jr. from Daily Show and from the new Fletch movies, and he's really funny. He also wrote one of the episodes. Him and the other people, it's a very small cast other than Michael Cera. These 2 other actors, they both also, I think, wrote on the show. A lot of the background people are like influencer types, sort of. Like, I don't remember her name, but there's this one white girl who does a bunch of characters, but they're all kind of the same character. And it's just like this obnoxious white girl. She has like very animated facial expressions. I don't remember her name, but like I see memes about her all the time, and I always see clips of her like just making faces. She's in here very briefly, and I was like, man, she makes great faces. Like, I don't know if someone saw a viral video of her and was like, we got to put her in a real thing. But, Soderbergh is always looking for like non-traditional performers, I think. So it's a cool show. I think it's like $7.99 on the Command Z website. It goes to charity, and then you can stream the 8 episodes. I think it was worth the $8. I think it was cool. It's just one of those things where I'm like, I don't know if I want to tell anyone to like drop everything you're doing and watch it, because it's kind of, once you get where they're going with it, it never feels like they iterate on it much. It really just feels like, I think there was an interview where Soderbergh said they were working on a project like this without naming what it was. And it sort of sounds like they just filmed a bunch of interesting stuff and threw it together. It seems kind of like it came together in the edit, maybe. I could be wrong. But if you saw the little trailer that showed a giant Michael Cera head, and then Stavi from Cumtown about to jump into traffic, and you want to know if you should watch that, you should probably watch it, I guess. Not nearly enough stuff for my personal taste, but it was good. Speaking of Steven Soderbergh, I also watched, I rewatched, I haven't watched this in years, Christopher Nolan's 3rd feature film, Insomnia, which is a Warner Brothers picture. Sort of started his love affair with Warner Brothers. I believe the movie came out in 2002. I think the story goes that Nolan had made Memento, and Soderbergh saw it and wanted to like help buy it or help have him and George Clooney's Section 8 shingle release it or something. But by the time they'd gotten to Soderbergh, he already had distribution. So instead, he just told him, hey man, I love the movie. If you ever need anything, just let me know. Whatever that is, I want to be able to help you, because Soderbergh's a good guy. And I guess there's a Swedish film with Stellan Skarsgård also called Insomnia. This is an American remake of, and Nolan really wanted it, but they were like on the fence about giving him a chance. And Soderbergh and Clooney got involved and like helped produce the movie and got him the job, I guess. I could be wrong on some of the details, but that's the gist. And it's the movie that then helped him get Batman. basically. So Warner Brothers, this worked out so well. Warner Brothers was like, we like this guy. Let's give him Batman. And the rest was history. But people talk a lot of shit about Insomnia. Or I should say people don't talk about it at all, which is a little bit unfortunate. And it's one of my favorites in his filmography. It holds up really well. If you haven't seen the film, Insomnia is Al Pacino plays Detective Will Dormer, who's a robbery homicide guy in LA, and him and his partner, played by Martin Donovan, the guy in Tenet who like gives... I'm doing the Tenet thing on the camera if you're listening to the audio version. The guy who's like, I can give you a... Bear with me as I get used to having a microphone in front of my face. In Tenet, the guy who's like, all I have for you is a word and a gesture, and then he like does the hand thing together. He's Will Dormer's partner. It doesn't matter that he was the guy in Tenet. I just wanted to remind people that he was in Tenet. I love Tenet. Anyway, Will Dormer's a detective. Him and his partner get called to Nightmute, Alaska, a town where it is day for 6 months of the year or something like that. It's like always bright. And Will is trying to sort of escape some like potential IA charges for some like maybe bad cop stuff he did. And he's investigating the murder of this girl. And he accidentally shoots his partner who was going to inform on him and kills him. Says he couldn't see him through the fog. But the killer that they were chasing, who killed the girl, sees him kill his partner. So he thinks that they're like, they were the same. You know, every good detective thing where it's like a cop and a killer, and the killer's like, you and I are the same, you know, or the flip side's the same coin. It's that kind of movie. But the thing that makes it dope is the killer is Robin Williams. So it's like Robin Williams is like this mystery author who's also like a sex pest and also just delusional. Thinks that him and Will Dormer are pals because hey, you killed a guy, I killed a girl. But like Al Pacino's just like, no, like, yeah, a piece of shit. I'm not going to do my torturously bad Al Pacino impression on the podcast, but this is one of my absolute favorite Pacino performances. It's like the last gasp of classic Pacino before he did the Dunkachino thing in Jack and Jill, and then he did like nothing of value for years, and then Ocean's 13, and then Irishman, and then now whatever. Will Dormer is such a good performance for him because he's just, the whole movie, he just looks sleepy and guilt-ridden and tired. Like he's so tired he can't even process being guilt-ridden. And the whole movie is Al Pacino just kind of like looking like he's going to nod off. And there's like 3 or 4 points in the movie where he raises his voice. And you know, in a quiet Al Pacino performance, all you're doing is waiting for him to yell. You're just like, he's going to fucking yell. And this is the one where he yells about, he's yelling at the victim's like best friend who was like fucking her boyfriend or something. And if I'm not mistaken, it's the same girl from Kiss Kiss Bang Bang when Robert Downey Jr. first goes to meet Michelle Monaghan at the bar and she has a friend who's there. I think it's the same girl. Someone fact check me on that. I think it's the same girl who plays the girlfriend in Insomnia. But he takes her out to this landfill where they found the body. I'm trying not to laugh. I'm sorry. The dead body part is not funny. But it's him trying to like intimidate her because she's just so nonplussed that like, or not nonplussed isn't the right word. She's so like, she doesn't care that her friend is like dead basically. It's not a big deal to her. And Al Pacino is just like dragging her through the thing. And he's like, they buried your best friend here in garbage bags. He just screams garbage bags like so loud at her. After I watched the movie, I kept just rewinding it to that part because it's so fucking funny to me. His delivery of garbage bags. But it's a great movie, man. The only thing that's wrong with it is like it's the only Nolan movie that he didn't like fully write. I think Hilary Seitz wrote the script, and then I think they had Nolan do some uncredited rewrites, like, and then also like the way he edited the movie, I think kind of like shifts her script a lot too. So there's parts of the movie, not like she's a bad writer or something, but there's parts of the movie that have this very bland, typical cop movie vibe. And there's other parts that are more interesting, a little more like nuanced. So like the worst thing you can say about Insomnia is that sometimes it's just a very decent cop thriller, which that's like one of my favorite genres. So I don't care. But you know, because it's not as like complex stylistically, I think people maybe or like whatever. This is like his, no one cares, but this is a movie. There's a couple of like foot chases in the movie that really remind you how far he's come with staging action. Like there's a very long sequence of Al Pacino chasing Robin Williams, and we both know that they're relying on stunt doubles, and the coverage of this stuff is very weird and like jerky and like not good. Maybe some of the worst stuff in his actual filmography, if we're being honest. But I think everything else that's good about it completely outweighs the bad. Like, a lot of the good stuff to me is like really, really good stuff. Robin Williams' performance is amazing. Like, he's so good as this, like, he's so matter of fact. Like, he's such a piece of shit. He fucking sucks. But when he talks about what he did and why he did it and stuff, he just seems like he thinks he's like this evolved, interesting person because he killed a teenage girl. Like, he thinks that makes him special. And Al Pacino, Will Dormer, has this line where he says, like, you know, you think you're interesting to me. You're about as interesting to me as a clogged toilet is to a fucking plumber. The way he says plumber. And it's like, I like that viewpoint of like, so many movies are based around like, these killers are so fascinating and these cops are so fascinated by them. And this is just like, he's like, this is my fucking job, dude. I just catch killers. I don't even fucking like it. This sucks. You suck. I want to take a nap, but it's so bright outside. I think Maura Tierney's in this movie too, randomly. But yeah, Insomnia is really good. It's not on Max anymore. Fuck you, David Zaslav. But it's on Prime. Like, you can rent it on Prime or whatever. One of my favorite things to do if I have to order something on Amazon is just accept the later delivery date, and then they're like, we'll give you $2 in like credits. And if that happens enough, I'm like, I'm gonna rent a movie. It's like a little reward. But yeah, I did that with Insomnia the other night. It was. I've been not sleeping very well for a very long time, and I need to do something about it as like an adult, but I'm not gonna. And watching Insomnia, I watched it like non-linearly. Like, I watched it, I fell asleep hard in the middle of it because I know I've said before that I don't fall asleep during movies that are good. That's not quite true. If I go to a movie and it's good, I don't fall asleep in the theater. But if it's a movie I've seen before and I feel comfortable with it, I will fall asleep watching it at home. But I just rewinded it back and just rewatched it. I watched the whole thing, but I kind of watched it a little bit out of order, I guess. Sometimes you gotta, people have those jokes about like, you're gonna try to watch a movie after 9 p.m. on a weekday. Like, yeah, I am. Maybe I'll fail. I'll finish it in the morning, but I'm gonna try. I love movies. Speaking of Christopher Nolan, I also decided to do a thing. So I had a different double feature planned for this week that I'm probably still going to do next week, so I'm not going to talk about it yet. But I almost, after all my fucking, ranting about don't watch Barbenheimer in the same day, I really wanted to rewatch Oppenheimer. And the timing, I wanted to rewatch Oppenheimer, and then I was going to go do a thing with some friends. The timing was not such that I could just watch Oppenheimer and then go to that thing. I would have a weird amount of space. So I was like, I guess I could just watch Barbie again. I guess I could just do the thing that I said don't do. But I've already seen them, so maybe it'll be fine. So the night before, I was like, before I go see Oppenheimer for the second time and Barbie for the second time, I'm going to watch Christopher Nolan and Greta Gerwig's first movies. Now, I've seen Nolan's first movie a few times, but I hadn't watched it recently. And that is Following, his first ever movie. It came out in like 1998. I think he spent like 7,000 pounds on it or something. And then the other film is Greta Gerwig's first directorial debut. She co-directed the movie with Joe Swanberg, another pillar of the mumblecore community. And they both star in it. It's called Nights and Weekends. So I had never seen it. I was like, let's do this. Let's do this. I also foolishly thought that Nights and Weekends was in black and white, so I thought it would be like a cool correlation thing. It is not in black and white. I was thinking of In Search of a Midnight Kiss, which is a completely different mumblecore movie, even though they all kind of are the same. But that one's in black and white, or at least I think it is. I didn't write that in my notes. But I'm 94% certain that In Search of a Midnight Kiss is in black and white. And it's also like a similar vibe. All mumblecore movies are kind of a similar vibe. My friend Jeff hates mumblecore. He also he's a filmmaker and also a content creator, and he is putting a video out soon about how much he hates mumblecore. And every time he mentions it to me, I'm like, if you were in your early 20s when this shit was happening, you'd be a little bit softer on these movies. You wouldn't have this level of derision for them. I definitely felt a thing for the mumblecore scene. So, following Nolan's first movie, I was introduced to this movie because I'd seen Memento as my first Nolan movie, and then I bought a book from Faber and Faber, I want to say, that was like the screenplay to Memento and the screenplay to Following. So I read the screenplay to Following several times before I ever got to see the movie. And then I've seen the movie 4 or 5 times maybe. This is my 4th or 5th, I assume. I have not seen it since I've had Letterboxd, and I started using Letterboxd in 2015. So when I went to log it, it did not say that I'd seen it before in my diary or whatever. So yeah, I hadn't seen it in at least 8 years. But it is really cool to watch a filmmaker's first movie, especially the first movie they did for like nothing. Like if you like Desperado, and you watch El Mariachi, it's really fun seeing Rodriguez work with so little. And you can see that like really, I don't want to say budget doesn't matter, but it's like if you were really creative and you have a really strong voice and you have found that voice and you know what you are doing and you know what you want to create, you can make something that will transcend the budget. That's not a new idea, obviously. I think that's something people say all the time. But I think it was particularly fun to see Following in such close proximity to Oppenheimer, because it's like a lot of the same general structural ideas. He's just been iterating on them for the last, 25 years. But he's the same guy. You know what I mean? Like he's a little bit more... He's better, obviously, but watching Following, you're like, this is the guy. You could tell that this was him, even before the polish and stuff. Following is just about this guy who follows people around because he's just an unemployed loser, is basically what the plot says. And then he meets a fascinating criminal guy named Cobb. That's where that name comes from, I guess, from Inception. And Cobb's a burglar, and then he teaches the main character how to be a burglar. But then it becomes kind of clear that like there's something else nefarious going on. And he uses a nonlinear structure. And one thing that Nolan's done in most of his movies that have dueling timelines or whatever is finding an easy way to teach the audience what's actually going on and like where the timelines are. Like in Memento, there's like the color stuff and the black and white stuff, which he uses again in Oppenheimer. But in Following, it's like the guy's hair, like the main character, like the old stuff, he has like long raggy hair. And then the newer things in the timeline are when he has his hair cut. So it's like little signifiers to tell you what's going on. But it's a really, really strong movie. If you've never seen it, you should check it out. If you like Nolan, it'll be kind of a really fun treat if you've never seen it. And if you don't, I actually don't know if you don't what it's going to be like. But you should see it. I think it's a good movie. He shot it like on weekends for a year, buying 16mm film on discount from like his day job at like a film processing lab or something, and catering for the movie because the cast is very small. It was just McDonald's breakfast. And every time I watch a movie like Following, I don't know, when I was in my early 20s, like all I wanted to be was a filmmaker. All I wanted to do was make movies and write scripts. And I've gotten very far away from that. And I don't know, sometimes it bothers me, sometimes it doesn't. But watching Following, I was just like, man, I don't know why, but the specific idea of like spending a year shooting a movie with your friends on the weekends and feeding them McDonald's breakfast, I don't know why that's such a fat guy concept, but just like, I don't know, man, like stuffing McGriddles in my friends' faces and us making magic with the camera. It was a little inspiring, I guess. Because it also just, I love, oftentimes nowadays, this newer crop of independent filmmakers that get elevated to the A-list or whatever, they make a small movie, and then sometimes they get to make a smaller studio movie. But you look at like Ryan Coogler, like Fruitvale, Creed, and then Black Panther, and now Black Panther 2. Like you just get sucked into making $200 million movies. And Nolan got to like kind of gradually get there from like $7,000 budget to like, I think Memento was like $5 to $10 million maybe. I don't remember. And then Insomnia was probably like 30 to 40. And then Batman was like 100 and something. And then like The Dark Knight was even more, you know what I mean? Like he's one of the last guys who's gotten to like gradually get up there, you know? And I feel like it's such a bummer for filmmakers now that don't get that middle space to fully develop their own voice before they have to start figuring out how to mute it for the big companies, for like superheroes or whatever, big adaptations and stuff. So it's fun. You can watch Following and then Memento and then Insomnia and then Batman Begins and see like this cool evolution happening. That if you went from Following to Batman Begins, I don't know what that would be like. I think his language, I feel like his grammar would be different because he never got to experience stuff in that middle ground. You know what I mean? Like where you really kind of figure out what you're doing. So, but then I watched Nights and Weekends, and like the opening scene is like a sex scene. Basically, Greta Gerwig and Joe Swanberg, who wrote the movie together and directed it together, play a long distance couple, and you see them meet up for a date for a weekend, and then within that weekend you see essentially how much strain the long distance relationship is causing them, and then they basically break up over like something very sensitive, and then they run into each other again a year later and like almost rekindle things, and it's kind of exploring that space. And they shot the movie in like two halves. Like the second half they shot like a whole year later, so they actually really were kind of disconnected the way their characters were. But the opening scene is just like they just start fucking. It's just like it opens up with a not so much a sex scene as much of like an undressing scene. So like Greta very naked, Joe Swanberg's dick totally out. It's not like a puerile thing. It's like a pretty. I think it's a great way to open the movie because it's really showing like how much pent up passion these two people have for each other by not being in proximity. And then showing how once that's out of the way, how hard everything else is. It's one of the better films I've seen about long distance relationships, or just relationships in general. And it's interesting for a number of reasons to me. Like if you watch Lady Bird, Little Women, and Barbie, there's like a really strong through line between those three films. And Nights and Weekends, I think, because it's more of a collaboration, it's a little bit less so. But you can still see the humanism there. You can still see some of the rhythms. But I think the big thing that I like about the movie is like Greta's performance is really good. And I think the reason why she became like the face for being in as many mumblecore movies as she was in was that of the performers, she was the one who felt the most like a real actress. And she hadn't fully developed all of her quirks. So like the way everyone who knows her work can just like talk like Greta, and her speech pattern's so obvious because of how many interviews of hers we've seen. At this time, like she's not that person yet. She's much younger. There's something a little more raw in the performances, I think, and there's something a little bit more not so. I think that Greta is someone who can very easily be pigeonholed into like a version of the magical, like the magic pixie dream girl thing, even though it's not really her vibe. And in this movie, she's like quirky in that kind of way, but more like quirky, like believable. Like you've met girls like her who react this way to certain things or talk this way or whatever. It doesn't feel quirky on purpose. It's just like it just feels honest to who she is and the kinds of people she was around at the time, I suppose. So like that was really, it was a good movie experience because I haven't seen that many movies from the era, or matter of fact, I don't remember that. I watched a lot of them. I don't remember them. I know I watched The Puffy Chair. I don't fucking remember anything about it. Like the Duplass brothers, I like Mark as like an actor, but the movies they've made together, I mean, Creep is good, I guess, but whatever, you know. The only real mumblecore movies I really stand for are, I brought him up earlier, Andrew Pujolsky. I met him very briefly at my last theater. He was there for a Q&A for Computer Chess, and he was a very nice guy, and not a lot of filmmakers that you meet are actually nice people. A lot of them are not nice people, but he was really cool. And his first movie, Funny Ha Ha, sort of the birth of the mumblecore movement, is a really good movie. I saw it on the Sundance Channel one day. His follow-up, Mutual Appreciation, which is in black and white, and really good movie. Those two to me are like the zenith of the genre, I suppose. But he still makes movies. He's made other stuff. He made a movie. He's done a couple of movies that are like regular movies because he's moved out of the mumblecore movie. The mumblecore era ended because all the major filmmakers in it started getting relatively normal budgets and making normal movies. So a lot of the stylistic hallmarks that came out of the brokenness of those movies kind of goes away. So Joe Swanberg has made a bunch of movies with the Jake Johnson, the dude from New Girl and Spider-Verse, and they're like regular budget movies, you know. And like Bialski, the same way, he made Results. I don't know if you've seen Results. Guy Pearce is in it, and it's like a really cool little rom-com type deal. And he made Support the Girls, which, if you've not seen, is one of my favorite movies of like the last 10 or 15 years. It is so good. I've never seen a movie that more perfectly captures what it's like working in the service industry, or what it's like working a retail job, or any of those type of jobs where they're miserable and they suck and they're terrible, but the people around you become like your family. Support the Girls. It's a movie I cannot watch without crying. No matter how many times I see it, I will just fucking start randomly crying. You should see it. It's a great movie. Really good movie. Fuck. One other thing I've been watching, and this, I need to be clear, this is not a movie, but it's something that has brought me immense joy this week. I would have watched more movies this week if at the end of the night from work I was not so mentally spent. Like, my mind is just kind of going constantly, and like, even watching movies for fun, it's kind of hard to like turn my brain off. There's this TikTok channel called American Cobbler, and it's this amazing craftsman, this just fine gentleman who fixes shoes, and his entire feed is just him repairing shoes. And sometimes someone will send him a shoe to repair, and they'll write him a letter about the importance of this shoe and how many generations it survived. Sometimes it's just like, you know, a girl sends him some scuffed up lubies and he's got to put new red bottom on him and whatever. And watching this man work, his very soothing voice, they always play like decent music behind the videos. I've never thought about the making of shoes in this way before. Like, it made me want to quit my job and go be his apprentice. Like, quit all of this. Like, no more podcasts, no more YouTube channel, just no more movies. I'm just going to learn everything I can from this man about shoes and how to make them sturdier and more reliable, and how to make them with heart and with love, and how to let people walk around this world with that love on the bottom of their souls that you put into it. And then I realized I was getting very emotional thinking about it, and I was like, oh, fuck. This is what Daniel Day-Lewis did when he quit acting. Daniel Day-Lewis stopped being an actor for like a while in the late 90s, and he became a cobbler. And then Martin Scorsese had to like beg him to come out of retirement to do Gangs of New York. But he was making shoes. And when I was like 16 and Gangs of New York came out, and I heard that about him, I was like, he's like one of the greatest actors alive. Why the fuck is he making shoes? That's so dumb. That's so lame. Mr. Lewis, I get it. Is it Mr. Day-Lewis? I get it now. I want to find out where he learned, and I want to go there and learn. I want to pick up sticks and go fix shoes. I don't know if I'm dexterous enough for it or patient enough, but I want to learn. If you guys don't follow America's Cobbler on TikTok, you gotta. He's making the world a better place. It's a beautiful man. All right, we have a few questions this week, so let's just get into them. I think you guys would support me in my shoe journey if I made videos about it, maybe. All right, first question is from @channel_not_found433. Who is an actor or director that gets more hate than they deserve? Personally, I don't think anyone really deserves hate. Even filmmakers and performers I don't personally like, or whose work I detest. Unless they're like really bad people in real life or something. Hate's not good, right? But specifically, I think that there's some directors that just get like shit on, or that people use as like easy jokes, I suppose, as like a shorthand for that guy sucks. And I always hate when people do that. I hate when people do it about Michael Bay. I hate when people do it about Zack Snyder. You're seeing a pattern forming here. I hate when people do it about Joe Carnahan. I think I'm very defensive of like people that maybe would be considered like film bro archetypes or whatever. I think that even some of those people that fit that mold, it's like you're not really mad at this filmmaker or this artist or the things they make. You're really mad at the people who like it. And we don't always choose who likes our stuff. I remember specifically when I first started this YouTube channel, my second video was about how much I didn't like Captain Marvel, the MCU movie, and I was kind of comparing it to Alita Battle Angel because that was a debate sort of happening online at the time. And I got a lot of guys who were like awful awful people, or they seemed awful. I don't know their full deal or whatever. Agreeing with me, but then like putting words in my mouth and thinking I thought other things I didn't think. And it gave me this icky feeling. I was just like, man, I think in the video, if you watch the full thing, I think in all my videos, I think I try to think I do a good job expressing like my personal like political viewpoints in a way that isn't, too woke or virtue signaling or whatever. But I think that you could watch my videos and get a general idea of what I'm like or what I believe in and where my morals stand or whatever. So it was my first or second video at the time, so I was kind of new to it, but I was like, man, I must have fucked up, because I thought I shared my perspective and like my opinions in a decent way, but people are listening to me and watching me, and they're thinking I think all this other stuff that I don't think. I'm not like that, bro. We're not on the same side, So like sometimes I think about people like Michael Bay or Zack Snyder. Not that these guys care necessarily or whatever. I bet a lot of them, if they had to be in a room with some of the people that ardently defend them the most, they would be like, hey, bro, don't do that. That's not cool, So I think of those guys, the guys that get sort of like the Bernie broification, like if you have a rabid fan base that's largely men, it is very easy to just assume that everything about you, the artist, sucks. I think the person I actually defend the most often, that always makes me feel a little bit like a loser or something, is like, I love Quentin Tarantino's work. I've talked about this extensively on the channel. He's like one of my favorites. And one of those favorites was like a favorite when I was a teenager for one reason, and then like is a completely different reason favorite now. And I think that a lot of times when people really shit on him, again, I don't think they're shitting on his films or his work. They're shitting on this like imaginary idea about him they made up to like be mad, It's this very reductive thing, and I think a lot of it just boils down to like, you knew a guy who was a dick in college who had a Pulp Fiction poster, and that sucks that like that anger against that guy is going to go against this filmmaker forever, Those are the sorts of people that I think get too much hate. I think also I want to say a little bit about directors who make movies that are like just like fine or just fun or whatever, and like people act like they're like losers because they're not trying to make peak cinema, they're not trying to make top kino. It's like, that's okay. You don't have to do that. Everyone doesn't have to do that. Just movies are fun. We like movies, Like, I feel like Robert Rodriguez sometimes gets a little bit of that. He gets kind of shit on as being like kind of a guy who sucks because he spent so much time making movies with his kids at his studio that he owns. And it's like, what's wrong with that, man? What do you want this guy to do? I think that got spiked when he started directing on some of these Star Wars shows, and people are like, you suck. And I'm like, I mean, maybe, but he's probably having fun. I don't like those shows very much, but I don't see the purpose of like pretending like Rodriguez is a bad filmmaker because of them. Like, he's cool, Don't be a dick. Don't be so full of hate over fucking. So much of the hate comes from like Star Wars or like DC superheroes or like whatever. It's like you're mad about these other things, and you're taking it out on regular people who just want to tell stories. I don't like that shit. Next question is from @IrisOut. What are some of your personal favorite John Wick clones? I feel like there's quite a lot by now. Most of them are kind of middling, but generally having good action and good lighting, if nothing else. Which ones do you think failed the hardest? Hope you keep this up. Oh, thanks, Iris. I think my personal favorite John Wick clone isn't even really a John Wick clone. It's this movie on Netflix called Polar. I don't remember a lot about it, but I watched it on Netflix years ago. This is probably like 2018, maybe, I guess, whenever it came out. And I watched it because it was being marketed like a John Wick clone. But it's got Mads Mikkelsen in it, and he's like really fucking hot in this movie. I mean, he's hot in like, I guess, everything, but he has like this specific kind of hot here where he looks like he stepped out of a sketchbook from like an image artist in the 90s. Not early 90s when they all had bulges and muscles and pouches, like mid 90s, Top Cow, Mark Silvestri, like the guy in the background of a Witchblade comic kind of vibe. I don't remember any of the plot. There's a lot of people getting shot. I remember the music was decent. It's directed, if I'm not mistaken, by Jonas Ackland, the music video director who directed the film Spun and the music video for Prodigy's Smack My Bitch Up. I think he made the movie. And the script is whatever. All this other stuff that is whatever. I don't remember a lot of it, but I just remember Mads Mikkelsen being like smoking. And that is what burrowed into my brain about that movie. In terms of like the one that failed the hardest, I don't know that this even counts as like a John Wick clone, but Taraji P. Henson made one a couple of years ago called Proud Mary, I think. And I love Taraji. We love Taraji around here. She's great. She's great in everything. And she just couldn't save this movie. And I just think of it as a failure because like she's such a good actress and she should be a giant movie star. And she easily, I think, could make this type of movie and be good in it and stuff. But the script I thought was boring. I didn't think the direction was very good. Everything about it was just like, who let her make this? You know? So often, it's like the rappers who have bad ears for beats, actors who have bad eyes for scripts. You're just like, stop this. This is not good. But yeah, those are probably my two for that. And then a final question is from one of my besties, my homie, Kyle. Question for the next episode. Top 3 favorite or formative movie-related experiences, whether a particular viewing, something work-related, something from your critic life, etc. Okay, cool, yeah. In terms of like formative watches, I've had a handful of movie-going experiences that were really like, really important. You know, I think about, when I think about formative watches, I always think about movie going experiences with friends or loved ones. So like Kyle, my friend who asked me this question, when I think of watching movies with Kyle, I think about, before I got sober, Kyle and I used to drink together, quite a lot, very often. And we both worked at a theater together. And one of the things that we would do when we had days off, if we could, is we would just go to Kyle's place. We would just get like Taco Bell or whatever. We would just get a bunch of like, just like bum wine and shit and liquor. And then he has an extensive physical media collection, laser discs, DVDs, VHS, all sorts of stuff. And we would just watch weird stuff together. You know, there's one particular day that we reference all the time that's like, maybe the drunkest I'd been leading up to sobriety when I decided to quit, where we drank for like 12 hours and we watched like this Russ Meyer movie together. I think I don't remember which Russ Meyer movie it was actually. Kyle will remember, he'll probably comment on here. But we also watched Stone Cold with Brian Bosworth. Like we watched a bunch of like movies that are like, you know, movies that like rep houses around here don't ever play. Like if we lived in a cool city, we would go see these at theaters and stuff. But like this area does not support those kinds of movies, so we just watch them at Kyle's and we just get loaded, and it was like so much fun. I always make fun of him for like the fact that laserdiscs have to be flipped, but this is such not a good. This doesn't make any sense, and I always get the time that they have to flip wrong. You know, I'm like, every 15 minutes, we got to flip this disc because that's not how it works. Those were very formative watches for me, just like watching movies I otherwise would not watch, but like with one of my best friends, you know. I just saw him yesterday, my friend Tom, who used to be kind of like my mentor when I first got into working at theaters, and who has way cooler movie taste than me and is like way smarter than me about cinema. His favorite filmmaker is Terrence Malick. And one night we watched Days of Heaven together at the theater overnight. We had to close, and then we had to come back the next morning for like a mandatory safety meeting or something, and we just decided to not go to sleep. We just came back to the theater and watched Days of Heaven. I'd watched Badlands on my own, and I really liked it, so I decided to watch the movies in order, like kind of like not for Tom, that sounds weird, but like it's like his favorite thing, so I wanted to understand it, but I didn't want to rush it. So we saw Days of Heaven together, and that was a really beautiful experience. And then I watched The Thin Red Line on my own, but that's like one of my favorite movies like ever. It's like my favorite war movie ever. I don't like war movies, but I love The Thin Red Line. And then not long after that, we went to the AFI to see The New World together. It was like the specific cut of the movie. I don't remember what the cut's called, but that was like a religious experience for me. Like I really, really loved it. And seeing it with Tom, I think made it feel more special. Do you know what I mean? Like seeing it in such proximity to someone who respects it so much. When I saw him yesterday, I got to meet his daughter and his son, which is really cool. His family's like so great. I love that man. But the funniest thing about that, of seeing him, was he saw Oppenheimer at the Udvar Hazy in Chantilly, Virginia. And he said he hadn't been there since he saw Interstellar. And I haven't been there since I saw Interstellar. We saw it together with a bunch of us. And my favorite thing about seeing Interstellar, that Nolan movie specifically with Tom, is that there's parts of it that like are like kind of dicey, where you're like, I don't know if this is gonna work. And the part in Interstellar where Matt Damon shows up, I maintain is like the funniest sequence in any Nolan movie ever. He's so funny in that bit. Matt Damon walking around huffing about how no one's ever been tested like he's been tested. Anytime I rewatch that movie, I always instinctively turn to my left, like Tom's gonna be there snickering because at how like goofy it is. So yeah, I realize I'm just kind of like listing times I watch movies with my friends, but all of my favorite movie going experiences involve seeing them with my friends. Like when Black Hat first came out, me and Tom and our friend Mike Kelly saw Black Hat together at like the smallest auditorium at the Regal in Chinatown. And I don't remember what was wrong. It started out like out of focus or out of frame, or something was wrong with it. And we made Mike go complain about it because like we didn't want to go do it. And Mike went to go complain. And Mike was a projectionist, so it was extra funny. But stuff like that, you know what I mean? Like I things I've seen with Kyle. Like Kyle and I went to the Angelica pop-up in DC. It's like the Angelica decided they wanted to have a DC location, but they couldn't afford to like actually build a building anywhere or rent one. So they built this like weird fucking like warehouse in Union Market. And it was supposed to be a temporary measure, but it is still there to this day. When it opened, around the time it opened, we saw It Follows there, and we both were sick. And like we had to walk really far from the closest metro to like get to it. It was hot out, and we watched it in what feels like someone's barn. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel like a real theater. And I just those like formative experiences. Do you know what I mean? When I was I went to the movies a lot with my family as a kid. Like my mom would take me to the movies and stuff. But once I got to be like 15, basically, I started going to movies by myself all the time. And I have memories of those things, but they don't stick with you the same way when you're completely by yourself. Like it has to be a really good movie to make you go like, I remember when this happened. Like I sort of remember when I saw Lost in Translation for the first time, but I was alone. I sort of remember when I saw Match Point, I guess, for the first time. I was a big Woody Allen fan in high school. But it's very different than remembering times that, you know, me and all my friends, you know, I specifically this weekend, one of my friends, Paul, is getting married to his lovely future husband, Jeff, amazing man. And, you know, I've seen Batman Returns a lot of times. We watched it at the theater once, me and Paul and some others. I think we were pretty drunk. And it was a very different experience that I remember very vividly, because like you remember your friends' reactions, you remember being around your friends, feeling your friends and stuff. So like, I think that is my favorite thing about a lot of I have other, I guess, like film critic stories I could tell at some other time. I can't think of any that are really funny right now, but I feel like all of my formative watches and movie stuff it's like, it's the friendship thing. It sounds like I'm trying to force it, but it's like true. Like lately I go to screenings, and oftentimes I go to screenings completely by myself. I don't, there's like a critic I'm like really tight with in the area, my man Julian Lytle, and I see him. But other times I just I sit by myself, I do my little thing, I leave. Like I'm very like whatever. But the times I've gone to a screening and I bring my boy Cody with me, like it's like this built-in thing of like we have this experience together, and then we talk about it after and stuff. And like my friend Dewey sometimes comes to screenings with me too, and the same vibe. It's like you kind of have to have people with you. You have to have your homies. That's what makes movies special, I think. You know what I mean? Like it's always best to see it with your people. And I realized lately I think I've been watching movies alone too much, so it's like I definitely got to get back into making it a social event, because that's the thing that makes movies so important, is like, yes, you can watch it in the dark with strangers and feel a part of it, but like watching it with friends. It's why anytime someone tells me that they like the channel or the pod or whatever, and they say it's like it feels like talking to a friend after a movie, that like makes me feel so good, because that's like all I've ever really wanted to do with this, is to make people feel that, because that's like my favorite thing. Like, spending so much of my lifetime working in movie theaters with other movie nerds, and then you don't do it. Like, what if you ever leave the job and work with like normies, people who don't obsessively have letterboxes and talk about stuff? Like, you forget how good it feels to be surrounded by it. It's that's my favorite thing. Kyle, I really miss watching movies with you, man. I have no reason to come up to New England that I can think of, but I'll probably make up one. So we can watch something together again. I think that does it for this episode of Your Fave Film Critic. I have some other interesting stuff that I'm gonna try to watch next week that I think will lead to some fun conversations, and I'm excited to see how much more hollowed out I get with week 2 of Barbenheimer. I might come on here next week and be a shell of my former self. I might be replaced by a scab, maybe. I don't know, but I want to thank everybody for listening. I really love and appreciate all the support. If you're watching the video version of this podcast, you know what to do. You can hit the like button if you liked it. If you loved it, you can hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell so you get notifications whenever I put out new videos, which will hopefully be next week. I say it a lot. And if you're listening to the audio version, you should subscribe to the pod. Wherever you're listening to this, you should leave me like a nice review or something. I like praise. You guys are all too far away to put a little gold star sticker on my forehead. That would be nice. So yeah, thank you guys for listening to Your Fave Film Critic. We will be back next week with more conversation. Bye.